I wanted to talk a little bit about our Lord Jesus Christ as teacher. Since the theme is really about education in the church, let's just take a quick look together about our Lord Jesus Christ. What kind of a teacher was he? What were his strengths as a teacher? And what can we learn from that? So one of the things that we see is that our Lord Jesus Christ, number one, he never thought about where he was teaching. One of the things that we always kind of get hung up on is, oh, I need a classroom, I need, whiteboards, I need projectors. But he didn't think or worry about what the venue was where he taught. If you think about it, he taught in an open field. He taught on the side of a mountain. He taught in the synagogue, and he taught in people's houses. So he never let a venue control or prevent him from teaching. Something that we need to think about. The other thing about his way of teaching is that he taught with love. That's something that we need to kind of also look at. One of the things that actually, if I quickly just go to the Land of Immigration seminar, our Holiness Pope Tewedros kept stressing that in our church, we don't teach, we serve. And that's something that really resonated because he explained the difference, and he said, a teacher gives instruction and information. A servant gives through love, brings people closer to God. So one of the things about us is we should never say that we are teachers. We are here to serve. So our Lord Jesus Christ always taught with love. He taught with compassion. If you think about when he raised Lazarus, his friend, from the dead, he died, and he went and he cried. And raising Lazarus from the from death was teaching moment for all the people that were around him. And he did it through compassion. He also enjoyed teaching one-on-one. One of the things that we always kind of overlook, so we do a lot of these kind of things. We talk and we teach or serve in big groups. And we always feel like we need a big group. The bigger the audience, the better. The more information will be, spread. But he taught a lot one-on-one, and that was his most effective teaching. If you look at his interaction with the Samaritan woman, that was on a one-on-one lesson that he gave her. A one-on-one interaction that brought her closer to God. We have lost that talent or that love for sitting with someone and exchanging, having a conversation with them to bring them closer to God. I often tell those who serve in Sunday school ministry, it's not just about Sunday teaching a big class. The most important lessons will be taught in your one-on-one interaction after the Sunday school class, throughout the week, a phone call, etc. He also taught with promise. Whenever our Lord Jesus Christ taught, he left people with promise, enthusiasm, hope. Teaching is not about, for our Lord Jesus Christ, was not about just giving someone information and doom and gloom and you're going to burn in hell, type of thing. If you notice, he rarely did something like that. All his teachings were delivering promise. I will return. I will be with my Father. It was always teaching with hope. He also loved to teach with stories. Now, if you look at the four Gospels in the New Testament, they're full of parables. Why did he teach in parables? You know, it's a wonderful thing, by the way, when we teach with stories. I often tell people that usually, you know, especially younger, you know, high school and college, I'll always go in and tell a story first. And usually, if you ask them a week later, that's the only thing they remember, is the story you told. They won't remember any other thing. They won't even remember who you are. But they'll remember the story. And our Lord Jesus Christ had such a power, a talent in teaching with stories. And he used stories that were relevant to his audience. Something that, again, that a lot of us sometimes overlook. We'll go in. It's funny, I'll give you an example. I was talking to a young girl in college. I can say young girl now, you know, because I'm older. A young girl in college. I remember this interaction so well. And she came to a youth meeting. It was at a different church. I think she was a junior. And she told me, Uncle Sherif, which made me feel even older, you know, the kids in school just don't want to hear anything I'm trying to teach them about Christ. So I asked her, well, how are you teaching them? She told them, look, and she pulls out her phone and shows me a picture of Saint Mina and said, here, I was trying to tell them about Saint Mina so they can come to our church. I'm like, you got to know your audience. Our Lord Jesus Christ knew his audience. He knew that when he was speaking to farmers, he used stories about farming. When he talked to the Pharisees, he used stories about the Pharisees and their teachings. When he talked to a tax collector, he talked about money and thievery and how you shouldn't do that. When he talked to the women, when he talked to the Samaritan woman, he talked to her specifically about things that were relevant to her, that will bring her closer to God. So always teaching with parables. You know, when we look at all the parables in the four Gospels, and you really think about it that way, was he teaching through that particular parable for a reason? And when you read the chapters before and after, it'll start to make sense, because he was telling them a story that was relevant to them. And last but not least, he taught with power. His teachings were powerful, with authority. So one of the things that really sometimes when we are trying to teach those or serve those who that we want to bring to the faith, do we teach them or talk to them with power and authority? Or do we tell them something like, yeah, I think this or that. Yeah, I think our Lord Jesus Christ resurrected. Or, yeah, actually, if you go read here, you may find out more, etc. But do we teach with authority? Like, I truly believe this. I truly believe what I'm talking to you about. And our Lord Jesus Christ always taught with authority. Even when he spoke to the Pharisees, even when he spoke to Pontius Pilate, he was the one running the show. They were not. If you go back and read, they weren't running the show. He was. He was putting them on the spot. He was talking to them with authority. So, what can we learn from this? So, Our Holiness Pope Tawadros, a few, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, as Abuna said earlier, he pulled together something called the Land of Immigration. I actually even have the notebook that was made of wood. Isn't this amazing? He made sure to tell us it was made in Egypt. So I know they have no wood there, but they probably imported it from China, I think. Yeah. But anyway, they're made in Egypt somehow. But he pulled together this land of immigration seminar. It was the second one. The first one, I believe, was 3 years ago in Egypt. I think Abuna Michael was there. And this one, he came in, and I loved it. It was extremely refreshing. I have to tell you, I was going not very optimistic, just because from past experiences, we go, we talk, and leave, and 3 years later, we meet again, start all over again. This was refreshing. I'm going to tell you why. Number one, and Abuna told us a little bit about this, he brought together about 12 bishops from different archdioceses around the world. So there were bishops from Bolivia, Brazil, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, the United States, of course. And there were a couple from Egypt. So it was about 12 bishops, just to give you a picture of what it looked like. From each archdiocese, they invited 2 clergy, one that had to be, had been in one of the lands of immigration. I hate using that term, but we'll go with it for now, because, like, for example, some of your kids didn't immigrate here, and some of us were born here. So, but anyway, we'll just go with that name for now. I did put in a proposal to change that next time, but I don't know. So he brought 1 clergy member. He asked every archdiocese, every bishop, to bring 1 clergy member that has been serving in whatever country, the United States or whatever, for more than 20 years. Another clergy member that was born in the United States and grew up in the United States, newly ordained, which was a nice mix. And 3 lay people. 1 person that has been serving and has lived in the United States for more than 30 years. There aren't a lot of those, unfortunately, that are still in church. Yeah, that was me. I was okay. I was one, no. And 1 male member that was born in the United States or whatever country, and 1 female. Okay, so it was a nice mix. It was about 60 clergy, 12 bishops, and about 40 or so lay people. So his goal for this was education. Education in our church and instruction. One of the things that he brought up was that, looking at my notes in the official notebook, is that the way our curriculums, for example, that we are using in different churches around the West, in the West, North America in particular, we did a quick inventory. So what he did was he formed 4 different task forces or work groups. One that was focused on Sunday school and Sunday school curriculums. One that was focused on pre-servant or servant prep curriculums and instruction. So those who want to serve specifically in Sunday school ministry. One group that was focused on family issues and family instructions. So things like premarital instruction, marriage, children, etc. And another one that was focused on youth and youth ministries. A 5th group kind of unofficially formed that was looking at the difference between culture and tradition in the church. That was interesting. But that wasn't his main focus, but it had to come up. So just to give you some things that he kind of stressed on himself, the Pope. He said there are 4 components to us serving others or instruction in the church. Number 1, he said that it's got to have a biblical component. Okay, because that's our manual. We got to go back. He said it's got to have church dogma and an understanding of church dogma. and traditions in the church. Also, it's got to have a spiritual component, a spiritual discipline. And fourthly, this was different. He said it's got to have a little bit of the human form and the human perspective through psychology and anthropology. That was refreshing, that's new. But really the whole human, humans, social issues, things that we're dealing with. So he said any curriculum has got to have all those four components. And he stressed this several times. To give you a little bit of what happened in a little bit, and then we'll open it up for discussion. So what he did was he said the Sunday school, that group that will be looking at Sunday school curriculum and instruction. You're going to have a bishop leading it, a few clergy, and a few lay people. That group, as well as the group for servants preparation, instructions, those were like the bigger groups. And he told each group, this is what you're going to need to do, which was really nice and unusual. He said, number one, after you're done, so we had about 6 hours on and off discussing things. He said, a couple of things you need to do once you come out from meeting together. This was a 3-day seminar in beautiful Somerset, New Jersey. So not that far from here. It wasn't that exotic, but it was nice. They even actually made us molocheia for Siyam on Wednesday. Yeah, it was an Egyptian-owned hotel. But anyway, so he said, you're not going to leave here. You're not going to leave here. It was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, unless a couple of things. Number one, you're going to present what you talked about. So each group had to present what it is they discussed, what the gaps are, and they had to present a plan. What is your plan? So it's nice to talk about it, because a lot of people will complain, the curriculums are not good, they're not relevant. Well, that's nice. What's your plan? And it's funny, Bishop David used one of my favorite, he stole that from me, or he's not allowed to. He said, don't just give us monkeys. Okay, I always say that, to my kids, don't give me a monkey, okay? You got to give me a monkey with the bananas so I can feed the monkey. So in other words, don't just throw problems. Don't just put problems to the monkey as a problem. So basically, he said, don't just give us a bunch of problems without solutions or a plan. So something that you guys can use. Don't give me a monkey. Okay, I need bananas with it to feed it. So every group had to then give a presentation for 45 minutes, and they had to say in their plan, it had to be a 3-year plan. Okay, this is refreshing, right? 3-year plan in writing with milestones. So what are you going to present to me in 3 months? Okay, then what are you going to present in 6 months? So he put the bishops, tell you the truth, on the spot, because they're the ones that will be the spokespeople. So it's not just a plan, but it has milestones, deliverables. I'm very hopeful about this, because usually we don't have plans, and we definitely don't have milestones or deliverables. So this is really nice. The Sunday school curriculum, really, really quick. We did a quick inventory of how many curriculums were just in North America. We didn't even look at Australia, Canada. I mean, we looked at Canada, but we didn't look at South America, etc., because they use some of the same. Just a quick scan, we found 14 official Sunday school curriculums, just in the United States and Canada. 14, and they're all over the place. They're not consistent. That was part of the presentation. They're all, structured, but they're not consistent in their approach. Some of them were totally irrelevant to in terms of the lessons and stories. Talking to a child that was born in America and has lived here 14 years and talking to them about, the farmer in Said, that it just doesn't click. It's irrelevant. So there were all these 14 different curriculums, official, and another quick inventory. Of course, the group is going to be working for the next 3 months. We found about 8 or 9 unofficial curriculums that people are working on individually in different churches. So he said, this is not acceptable because we need to know and understand what it is that we're teaching. Okay, this serving, especially in the Sunday school service, children that we are responsible for. He said, every one of you is accountable for those kids. So what you're teaching them, what you're showing them, how you're answering their questions, they're going to take that and it's going to stick. And he gave us some examples of kids that, when they're young and they learn and they respect the person that's teaching them or serving them, they remember that person later on in life. But whatever you teach them is going to stick with them. So that's why he wants to make sure that we have an idea, we have a good handle on the curriculums. So they're looking at standardizing a curriculum. So I suggested, instead of starting from scratch, when we just did an inventory and found all these 14 curriculums, let's take a look at what we have, what's working, what's not working. It's my project manager brain. Let's see what's working, what's not working, take what's working, and then build on that. So that's what they'll be doing for the next 3 to 6 months, that group. I was in the group for 2 groups, servants prep, so preparing servants, and the other one, which was, and Bangelos kind of pulled me in that a little bit, I wasn't going to, for the family instruction. So preparing people for marriage, getting them to understand. There is something right now, there are a couple of churches are doing things, and I think there's something official, but he said, he actually gave a very disturbing, His Holiness, disturbing statistic. He said in Egypt now, he's talking about Egypt, in Egypt now, the divorce rate is 4 out of 10 Coptic couples, which blew me away. In the United States, it could be worse. But he said, so a lot of the instruction we're giving has to be looked at again. We need to be teaching them about what it means to love, what it means to respect, the whole love and respect. It was really, again, very refreshing. I'll tell you, His Holiness, once, I got to meet him in a smaller venue, he really is looking at, let's change things a little bit. Let's think out of the box a little bit. I didn't see that, before, when you see him in a church or a liturgy, but he's really all about that. So that was really good. So basically, those groups are going to have to deliver something in 3 months. He even spoke about the youth groups, youth leaders, and campus ministries, as some of you may or may not know. A lot of the local campuses, there are ministries where the local Abuna will go. And some people are kind of leading some ministries in the university, like Rutgers has a big ministry. He said we need to take a look, are those consistent? I just found out that NYU, where I was, which is a very liberal institution, has an Orthodox ministry. So Abuna Gregory in Manhattan, my daughter just invited him to come speak. So it's a really good thing, especially those kids that are away at college, they need to stay in touch. So he wants to focus on that. He said that's something that's not very relevant to Egyptian youth, because everyone there, lives at home and goes to school. Whereas here, a lot of people go away to school. So he needs to make sure they're connected. So that's kind of the highlight. I don't know, Abuna, did I leave something out? I think he did bring up the culture versus tradition briefly, because there's a lot of questions. A lot of the clergy there, a lot of them were clergy that grew up here, and the ones I spoke to, and they're all kind of struggling with the whole idea culture, Egyptian culture versus church tradition. And a lot of them are struggling with that, and the Pope recognizes that. That was a more difficult one, but churches such as St. Anianus are kind of, it's a little bit of a solution to that. So there'll be more, I think, churches like this, is what he's thinking. And I'm getting